Hello, good day and welcome back to my channel. My name is Oluwatosin. If you are new here, you're welcome. Please consider subscribing to my channel, and then to all my returning subscribers, you're also welcome. Thank you so much for always coming back to watch my videos. In this video, we are going to be learning how to cut a pencil skirt with pleating at the back with an elastic waistband. And here is the Ankara fabric we are going to be working with. And here are the basic measurements required. Guys, you have to know that there are two ways to achieve this style. You can either cut the pleating together or you cut the pleating separately. And in this particular video, you are going to be cutting the pleating separately. And the next thing you have to know is you have to watch out for the highest measurement between the person's waist and hip. Most times it's the hip, but there are a few cases that it will be the person's skirt waist. Maybe a pregnant person or people with very big tummy. So with that knowledge, you are going to measure the hip. This person's hip is 36, and then you are going to add 12 inches sewing allowance. So now I've measured my 36 divided by 4 gives me 9. I'm just checking for you guys to see that what I said was what I did. Then we still have 3 inches allowance. When you multiply 3 by 4, it gives you 12. So I measured a hip plus 12 inches. Now moving over to the full length of the skirt. Our full length is 38. This skirt has band of 1.5 inch. So I put my 1.5 inch up. I measured 38. Then I added 2 inches sewing allowance. 2 inches allowance to the down for turning the down of the skirt, because this skirt is going to be fully lined. So now to know the quantity you are going to like push forward after cutting the hip plus 12 inches, just mark the hip divided by 4 and then add 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Anywhere, any point your marking is where you will push your clothes forward to. I hope you guys are getting what I'm saying. So whatever is remaining at the back is the zip allowance. So the next thing to measure is a skirt waist divided by 4. Ours is 29. I divided it by 4 and then I added 2 inches sewing allowance because this person wants a very big allowance on her skirt. The next is to measure 5 inches downward. On that point of 5 inches downward is where I'm going to measure her hip divided by 4, and then I'm adding 2 inches sewing allowance as well. I'm just going to connect my allowance points together, the skirt waist allowance and then the hip allowance. Then for the lower part of the skirt, depending on how pencil you want that part to be, this particular person doesn't want it too pencil, so I just deducted 2 inches from my hip and then I connected the point with the allowance point. For that, I used 7. I divided it by 2. I marked 3.5. I marked on that point of 3.5. I marked half inch forward, half inch backward, and then the length of the dart is 4 inches. Then I connected the dart point together. So after then, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark where my slit is going to start from. You can also put a notch at the dart point. It might not just be the chalk marking. You can just notch it in case the chalk is going to wipe off. So to mark where my slit is going to start from, I put 1.5 inch upward as the band, and since the skirt length is 38, I marked 20. The slit is going to start from 20. So from that point of 20 upward, I'm going to mark the actual zip allowance, which in this case I'll be using 1.5. Then I'm going to mark that upward and go ahead to cut it out. Then cut the shaping, cut out the shaping side as well. So for the lining, we are going to be cutting the lining separately for front and back. It won't be like when we were cutting on the main fabric that we cut front and back together. We are going to be cutting separately. So this is lining for the back now. I just deducted 3 inches from the length. I made the lining 3 inches shorter. Then I went ahead to cut that out, and this is lining for the front as well. I made the lining 3 inches shorter as well, and then I went ahead to cut it out. It is that simple, guys. So the next I'm going to do is I'll go ahead to turn it. We are still supposed to cut the band and the pleating, but I love to cut my band after shaping so that I can just measure the waist circumference and cut my band. So at this point, I'd already turned and sewn the dart. So now to cut the pleating, I'm going to measure the whole length of the slit, and then I'll be using 20 as the width, as the wideness of the piece I'll be cutting for the pleating. So when I measured the whole length of the of the slit, the answer I got, I just added 2 inches because I'm going to be turning it. I added 2 inches to that, and then I cut width of 20. Then I also went ahead to cut the lining for it. I made the lining 2 inches shorter than it because I will be turning the pleating as well. So after turning it, this is what I have. The next thing I'll do is that the right side of the pleating, I'm going to pin it down on the right side of the back panel, of the pleating side of the slit side of the back panel. I'm just going to pin that out. Don't forget there is up and there is down for the piece we are using for the pleating. So just pin it down on both sides. I took that to my sewing machine and then I sew it together. I pressed the point where I joined it. I actually cut this piece separately because I have this piece lying somewhere and I did not want it to waste. That's why I decided to use it instead of cutting it together. So the next now is to mark where my zip is going to start from and where it's going to stop. So to do that, I just put 1.5 inch up. I measured 1.5 inch on the zip. That's the one that will enter the band. And then I marked the remaining on the main back panel. Then the remaining part, I stitched it down. Then I went ahead to give it a good press. I hope that is clear, guys. So the next is to do the pleating. So to do that, after pressing your back panel very well, you start pleating. You can pleat at 2 inches, you can pleat at 3 inches. It depends on how wide you want it to be, but in this case I used 2 inches. You can pleat in opposite direction. Like now I pleated towards the front, I pinned that, then I'll pin the remaining towards the back, like you are making kissing pleats. You can do that, and you can also pleat all in one direction, probably to the left or to the right. It depends on how you want it. So when we are pleating in opposite direction now, this is what the back panel, like this is what the inside is going to look like. So let's pin that and then flip it over to show you guys what it's looking like. So when you are pleating in opposite direction, this is what the front, like this is what the pleating is going to look like when it is going in opposite direction. And when it is going in the one direction as well, let's check out what it's going to look like. So that part where my finger is running across is where you are going to stitch. You will stitch it very, very well so that it doesn't tear. So when you are pinning in one direction, this is what the pleat is going to look like. So you can just pin it down with your, when you are pleating in one direction, this is what the inside of your skirt is going to look like. So you can just pin that down as well, and then let's flip it to the right side to see what it's looking like. So when pleating in one direction, this is what your pleating is going to look like. So it depends on your preference. So moving ahead, we are going to stitch down that part where my fingers are touching, and then the zip allowance, like where the zip is going to stay, you are just going to pin it down because the next thing we are doing now is to shape. We are going to shape it before fixing the zip. So we are just going to pin that part down and just make sure your pleat is properly arranged, and then you give it a very, very good press so that it will relax. And I've pinned the zip allowance down at this point, and it is now time for us to shape. To shape, guys, you can shape from the front, you can shape from the back. But if you don't know how to shape perfectly first, I would advise you start your shaping from the back, because to start shaping from the front now, you have to locate the midpoint first so that your shaping will not like be on one side, like it has to be centralized. So this person's waist is 29, a skirt waist is 29, I divided it by 4, and then I marked it at the front. But if I want to shape from the back now, I automatically know where the middle is, because where the zip allowance is where the middle is automatically. So let's shape from the back now so that you guys can understand better. I divided the skirt waist by 4, I marked it. I divided by hip by 4, I marked it, and then I connected my 2 points together, and then I connected the straight line straight down depending on how pencil I want that part to be. So now I'm done shaping, and this is what I have. The next thing is to crop the front. Skirts like this, the front is not always the same length with the back. So just fold it the way I folded it, and then mark 1.5 inch downward. If the person is chubby, you should use 2 or even 2.5. But if he's a slim person, just use 1.5 or 2. But in our case, I'm going to be using 1.5 at the front now. Measure 1.5 downward, and then you crop it. The next thing is to cut the band. So for the band, just measure the waist circumference, whatever measurement you have left after shaping and cropping. Just cut that measurement close, like 1 inch. And then you guys remember I said we left the band width is, like, the wideness of the band is 1.5. On fold of 2 now is 3, plus allowance for attaching it to the skirt, that makes it 4. So cut the circumference of the waist plus 4, the circumference of the waist in length, and then the width is going to be 4 inches. So the next thing now is, after you can add an interfacing to this band. It depends on how you want it, but I'll not be adding interfacing. So now, to do the elastic waistband, after attaching it to the skirt, just locate the side, and from the side measure 2.5 inch forward, 2.5 inch backward. You can use 3, you can even use 3.5, but for a slim person I would advise you use 5. That's 2.5 inch forward, 2.5 inch backward. And then you go ahead to cut your elastic, that is 3 in big size elastic, like the one I'm using, that is 3 inches long. You know, it's 5 inches that we marked. 2.5. I hope you guys are seeing my marking. 2.5 forward and 2.5 backward. But the elastic we are using now is actually half of it. That's 2.5, plus the allowance that we are going to use to attach it on the band. That's what makes it 3. So place the elastic on your marking to one side, not too up and not too down. Remember, we are still going to fold this over, so not too up and not too down, and then you stitch it properly to on that side, and then you pull it over to the other marking. You pull it over to the other side we marked. I hope I'm making sense. When you pull it over, there's going to be like fold at the back. The back is going to be folded like this. Don't worry, we'll get there. So just pull it over to the other side where you marked. That's the 5 where you marked now, and still stitch the elastic down on that part. Stitch it very, very well so that it doesn't just stitch it very, very well. So when you are done, do the same thing to the other side. I did to the other side off camera, and when I'm done, this is it. This is what it's going to look like. It will be as if the back is puffing. So this is it for the two sides, the two shaping sides. So the next thing I'm going to do is, you remember the half inch I said, the 1 inch I said we should add to the band. When cutting the band, you are going to use half inch on this side and half inch on the other side. The half inch, you must have left it like dangling when attaching it to the band and to the skirt. You're not going to sew the half inch together with it. So now that half inch, you're going to fold it inward like I did, and then at the upper part of the band, you fold it inward to it like half inch, and then you fold your band like when you are folding a piece. I hope you guys get. So just fold it and then sew it carefully and neatly. Be at the edge of the band as much as possible from one side of the skirt, starting from the zip allowance side to the other side of the zip allowance side. I hope you guys get what I'm saying. So as you are going, that part where the elastic is going to appear like it's folding. You just have to pull it. Make sure you pull it so that it doesn't pleat. Don't let it pleat before sewing on it. Pull it very well. Let the elastic stretch to like the maximum, and then you sew. You keep sewing, you sew from this side to the other side. Just make sure that you are folding it properly and neatly, and then your needle is at the edge where the band is attached to the skirt. Be as neat as possible. When you get to the other side where the other elastic is, that half inch that you left, fold it inward. Then at the upper part of the band, fold half inch inward as well before folding over your 1.5 inch that is left. And then you just pull when you get to the elastic side and you sew. After doing that correctly, you would have something looking like this. The two sides will gather. So the next thing now is to sew on the elastic. To sew on the elastic, just the elastic side now, not from the beginning, not on the whole band, on just the elastic side now. Just so you're going to sew 3 lines on it to just hold it down firmly. I just did the first one, and then you rotate, you lift up your foot, you rotate your piece to the middle, not the end, the middle. Then you keep rotating, you make your second line on the middle, and then you make your third line at the down where the band is attached to the skirt. I hope you guys get what I'm saying. Okay, so this is the third line I'm making now, and you can see that that part is gathered. I hope it's clear. So this is for one side, and the other side too is gathered. And after then, I went ahead to fix my zip on the skirt, and basically we are done. So you can see that the side is stretchy. This person's waist is 29, skirt waist is 29. So let's measure now to be sure that even with the elastic it's still up to 29. So what I have here is 14, and which makes 29 when you multiply by 2. Thank you so much for sticking with me from the beginning of this video till this point. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section. Thank you so much to my 584 subscribers. Thanks for finding my channel worthy to subscribe to. I really appreciate all the comments and likes on my video. Thank you so much for your efforts towards the growth of my channel. I'll see you in my next